Folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name's Jason Robertson. I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us today, folks. Jason, I'm over it. I think America's all over it. Dem fear-mongering, gaslighting, hoaxing, lying, the stuff we're seeing in Los Angeles, America is fed up. And I'm also fed up with senators that think they can crash hearings and obstruct official proceedings and think they can get away with it, Jason.
Oh my gosh, we talk about it a ton on the podcast. And folks, let me give a shout out, especially on the Rumble chat. Got K-Gun Girl always first in. Like, we need a I'm first in the chat t-shirt or something for her. And Dee Dee over there with a good morning. We love having you guys. Thanks for taking time to watch the podcast. Make sure you do us a favor. Give us a like, comment, share. Helps our show get reach. But as we talk about on the show, Dems and conservatives live in two different worlds. And the Democrat narrative is just crumbling. Like, it's just falling apart. More and more normal people are waking up. We often use a line like share a show with somebody you might not politically agree with. Like, when we get to this ridiculous Alex Padilla story, Alex acted like a complete jerk and he obstructed security and they haul him out. Now you'd think everybody was crying like the Gestapo stormed his office. And wait till we show you some of these videos and we show them so that you can help understand what your crazy leftist friends on Facebook or neighbors or relatives are living through. And it's ridiculous. They live in a different reality. We're done with Democrats, and more Democrats are done with Democrats.
Yeah, how do you watch what happened in Los Angeles and think, you know what, none of this would have happened if Trump hadn't sent a few agents to Home Depot? We had 50 million illegals living in this country, many of them committing crimes. We don't know who they are, where they are, what they're doing. We know they're smuggling people and drugs across the border, but only that raid at Home Depot, that's really what lit the tinderbox here. Just stop the raids and let all these illegals live in harmony with the United States, trying to live out the American dream. Jason, just stop raiding and it'll be okay.
You know, it's funny. I tweeted that earlier this week when Karen Bass, first it was a day or two of, there are no riots. There are no riots. And then day 3, she's like, okay, there are riots and it's Donald Trump's fault. And she literally made the argument, if you stop doing immigration raids, people will stop rioting. I have never heard a more Democrat taking anything. You know what? Just quit kicking the illegals out of the country and they'll stop burning stuff down. Does that make any sense, Todd?
This is how blackmail works. If you stop doing this thing, I'll stop doing the bad thing. Donald Trump just stopped deporting all illegals and ignore the fact that Biden deported folks. Obama set records when he deported folks. You never heard a peep about that. You send one violent illegal alien back home, and all of a sudden that means the entire Democrat-run city has to burn for days on end. Officers need to get injured. They can wave their flag, speak their language, and say, don't send me back to that place whose flag I'm waving and whose language I'm speaking, because that's awful, and I don't want to go there, but I'm going to still do all that stuff here. This is insane. It's all insane.
Right. And I got to think, like, not everybody is a crazy blue-haired cat lady. Some people actually have some critical thinking skills. And at some point when they hear Karen Bass say that and they're, well, you know, wagging their head like a seal, they got to be like, wait a second. Why on earth are we saying, like, yeah, quit enforcing the law? And we had this in Minnesota last week, that there was a multi-agency drug and human trafficking bust in Minneapolis Lake Street. For those who don't know, if you remember in the Summer of Love, that Target that was on all the news getting burned down and people running in, smashing up, that's on Lake Street. That's that part of town. And all of a sudden the left wing, like underground, like whatever Reddit channels, they mobilized all these people, hundreds of people went to disrupt this operation. Turned out it was a multi-agency drug bust, and they're obstructing the drug bust and trafficking bust. And it was funny because I was replying to people who were saying, like, oh, look at that, Minnesota's standing up. And I'm like, guys, this is a drug bust. Like, what are you doing? And I would have lefties reply, and they're like, oh, no, it's ICE. It's ICE. What are they? And even the mayors come out, the city councils come out, the sheriffs come out, and some of those guys won't even admit it. It is bizarre, but you get some normal Democrats going, oh, maybe we shouldn't have been out obstructing federal law enforcement from stopping a trafficking operation. I don't even understand.
If you're a normal Democrat out there, do you want drugs on the street or not drugs on the street? Do you want the kind of people that would traffic in such a quantity of drugs to be living in your community, or do you not? Jason, Minnesota's fascinating because you got all the rings of suburbs around there, and you got your Edinas and your Wyzetas and your Minnetonkas, and they're all white, they're all wealthy, and they all vote Democrat. And you're like, I know you would never live in Lake Street. You would never tolerate this in your own community, but you're such a good person, you're going to vote to allow it because no human is illegal, and these are people making choices for themselves, and that's fine. Just don't do it in my backyard. Like, the disconnect here is they'll never invite them into their homes, they'll never feed them, bring them to a soup kitchen, pay for their doctor's bills, but they'll make you do it because they're good people.
Oh, that just drives me bananas too, because like we've had discussions with some liberal family members about how, well, they just need to tax the billionaires and do this and that and stand up for these causes. I'm like, well, I don't know. Have you ever given any money to these soup kitchens or volunteered at them or done anything to help that? You think it all gets outsourced to the federal government? Really?
I was almost debating, Jason, whether I should share my anecdote now. I think we both have an anecdote we want to share if we want to dive into these clips here and show all of America getting fed up. And you know who also is fed up? CNN. Even CNN couldn't defend it. I think I'm going to go back to Alex Padilla for a second. Even they were like, this clown crossed every line imaginable.
Absolutely. Uh-oh. We got Fally checking in over on the Facebook. No sound on Rumble.
Yeah,
Hopefully the other folks on the Rumble
First
can let us know.
Now it's the audio. Yeah, we got to figure this out.
Yeah, Rumble folks, let us know if you can hear us. We're doing sound check for old Fally.
Weegie. Jason, that might be the best name we've ever had pop up on our chat box. Weegie, that's a perfect Rumble handle. Head over to rumble.com, find out the American Tribune. We got Buddy over on Facebook. It's ridiculous. Dems are the problem. Wake up. I couldn't have said it better myself. That was one sentence describing the entire problem. Buddy, you should find us over on Rumble, the American Tribune. Got Zeta on Facebook. Democrats want the destruction of America. We have a smart Facebook audience. All of you folks would fit in perfectly at rumble.com at the American Tribune.
Uh-oh. And Francis and Dee Dee confirm, Fally, it's a you problem, not a Rumble problem. I'm just giving you a hard time. You can enjoy us on Facebook. Although the Rumble only section, we got some hot videos that we can't play on Facebook, YouTube. You can see them on Twitter X. You can see them on our Rumble channel. After the first hour, we'll go over to Rumble only. Best hour of the day, best half hour of the day. But we got to start. This first one I want to play is I want to touch on Todd and my radical deportation opinions, because people have given us grief before. I think everybody agrees we need to deport illegal aliens that are violent. And I think that's widely accepted now as something that most people, like, it's an 80-20 issue. And Todd and I have maintained we want it to go further, and we want them to deport any illegal, not just the criminals. And the reasoning behind it is there's no screening on these folks when they come into America. They don't sign up to be part of the American dream, to be an American citizen. Some of our viewers came in legally, and they're like some of the best people we know. They're some of the most patriotic Americans. But these illegals that came in, it snuck in and just want to live off the amazing country that is America. Like, we've taken the position, like, send them home. If they want to come back, follow the rules. We would love to have them. But I found this video as a Fox News clip, and it perfectly sums it up. Todd, am I missing anything?
No, you're not. And just to frame this up even more, if you ask any liberal out there, should Japan be allowed to stay Japan? Should Russia? Should Palestine? Name a country around the world, and you always imagine ethnicity, a certain group of people, and that's their territory. And so they're allowed to defend their borders, remain sovereign in their own way, stay homogenous. But when it comes to America, that's the one country they're like, yes, everybody should be allowed to come in, and we want to change it culturally, demographically, politically. If you ask them about other countries, they'll be like, yeah, that's okay. Japan can stay Japan. They're the Japanese, and they defend that. And then at the same time, you ask them, well, what about America? And they're like, burn it all down to the ground. These are the people they want in there, and you don't think that's going to change things forever? It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, and Todd, you have a background in education. You know a little bit about history. And one of the things that's been coming around is California used to be part of Mexico. Can you maybe educate our audience, just because a lot of people don't know?
You know what? I wish I could pull up a tweet because they did it so well. You have to remember that before the Europeans came, it was not Mexico. It was just like what the United States is or was back then. You had roaming bands of different tribes, indigenous communities, all vying, by the way, for the same land and resources, pillaging, raping, murdering, conquering. This happened well before any European ever arrived. We think of the Aztec down in Mexico. They were not Mexicans, they were Aztec, and you had other communities down there. The Spanish come, and then for the next, let's say at 1519, and for the next 150 years, you've got the Spanish mixing in with the indigenous communities, and this is the Spanish colonial empire. There's still no Mexico per se. It is all controlled by Spain, or rather 300 years. In 1820, Mexico gains its independence from Spain, and just a couple decades later, in the mid 1840s, we conquer Mexico and take what is now California, Arizona, Texas, Utah, Colorado. We take all of that land. So for maybe 20 years, Mexico had independence, and even then, they had zero control of California, Arizona, Texas, because there was nobody there. It was a hinterland. It was empty. Mexico was barely staying together. They weren't even identifying as Mexican. They identified more when they're state. So it'd be like if you and I, Jason, identified as Minnesotan first and American second, and my brother who lives in Florida identified as a Floridian first and an American second. That's what was happening up there. There was no national identity. There was no Mexico to speak of. And again, it existed for 20 years. Prior it was Spanish. Prior it was indigenous communities conquering one another. And now it is all American. And you got this clown right here who's going to, I think I got to roll the tape. You listen to his interpretation of history, and only one of us is correct.
Well, and before you roll that, so this is a guy, like, look at the pudgy little Mexican dude. Like, he's the one that the left wants to frame up and be like, oh, see, he's fine. He lives here. He pays taxes. He should get to stay. Look at him. He's not threatening. Like, what's he going to do? Steal your taco? You know? But listen to this deranged lunatic.
We don't agree with the term illegal. We're undocumented. We've been here for thousands of years before you guys showed up, screw up everything. We're anti-capitalist. We think socialism does work, real socialism.
Is there a country we can look to kind of model the socialism idea?
The only model would be Soviet Union the first 4 years.
All right. So there's an alternative version of history. We've been here for thousands of years. I made the case that when the Spanish arrived, that's when that's when you had the mixing of white and indigenous, and that is what created the Mexican Hispanic population that you see for the most part now. So no, not thousands of years. And I would go a step further and say if he's identifying maybe with Aztec from Mexico, they did not have an extension out in California, Texas area. But so
well, and I gotta say, why do we let a-holes like this remain in our country who aren't citizens, who are openly saying we want to fundamentally change your country? Now, if your country was so great, go back to it. Go back there. Like, there's never been a successful socialist nation other than, like he says, maybe the first few years of the Soviet Union. And that's always the story, that socialism never works. Communism never works because you don't have incentive for people to produce. So what they do is they go into successful capitalist nations. They convince you, hey, this is a great idea, by getting people to think, oh, you're being screwed over, the rich people. And then you start taking from them. All of a sudden, a few years in, like, you run out of food and resources, and then the country collapses and horrible things happen. But why would we let this a-hole in our country stay in our country when he has no idea what we're doing? He doesn't want to learn the language, adopt it. Like, we're a capitalist nation. Like, go home. Just go home.
Yeah, you knew what we were about when you came here. If you want to live in your socialist utopia with other Mexicans, I have a place in mind already for you to go, and that's back in Mexico, which is socialist and has a bunch of you guys all around there. And Jason, I want to hit on this comment as well. Our Facebook comments are rocking today. All right, I got to scroll through here. So you have no clue just how far we are done with this. It's about to turn very violent for the left. Folks, we are at war. I think our side is starting to wake up to that. This is a provocateur, a saboteur. This is an enemy agent. This is what we're up against, folks, because they're not going to listen to your conversation at this point. They're not going to say, you know what, you have convinced me of real history. Turns out we haven't been here thousands of years. Turns out it's a good thing that capitalism exists and that I'm in a country that is capitalist, and I wouldn't be here if it was socialist because there'd be no reason to come here in the first place. These people aren't going to stop, though. They're not going to wake up. They're going to continue relentlessly marching towards a communist overthrow. And Jason, I am concerned that it will get violent, but I don't see any way out because they're not going to stop. And Americans are fed up, and we're not going to just hand it over to them. Like, that's where it is heading right now. We're in a Cold War right now with the communist globalists trying to defend America.
Well, yeah, and just to preview, especially for the Facebook folks, we do an hour on Facebook, YouTube, and then we do a half hour, 45 minutes over on Rumble only, where we have some videos to show Americans that are done and fed up. And it's happening. And I got to say, too, there's been a few people in the chats that have referenced it. This Saturday is going to be a big Saturday. And this Alex Padilla thing we're going to go into next is trying to gin people up. So one of the Walmart Harrises has started a No Kings nationwide rally thing where they're planning all these little rallies and demonstrations across the country. And like, I actually, one Bubba, who sometimes watches us on the Rumble, he actually logged in because he got to create like an account with them, and he got their training materials and sent it to me. So they're like planning this large scale operation. There's like 10 of them in Minnesota. Every state's going to have a lot of them in the state capitals. They're going to be these large anti-Trump protests, which the theme Trump is Hitler. Trump thinks he's a king. And that's where this Alex Padilla thing goes right into it, is they want to frame up like Trump hates the Mexicans, the Hispanics, and it is insane.
Yeah, speaking of Padilla, 100% a stunt. I mean, this guy doesn't care enough to go interrupt the proceeding. Jason, you and I talk about them drawing the short straw all the time. It's your turn to be an idiot. And we made fun of Joni Ernst when she was the one speaking out against Pete Hegseth. You had James Langford last year trying to push the bipartisan border bill across. So on the other side, now I think it's Alex Padilla's turn. They're like, you need to go be clown yourself because we have information on you that you don't want to get released. So congratulations, you're going to be the one that goes into this NOME conference and acts a complete fool. You know it's wrong. We all know it's wrong, but we're going to frame up Donald Trump as arresting and pushing down some sitting U.S. senator, and that crosses every line imaginable. I think we just got to roll this tape.
Hey, actually, can we maybe start with Pete Buttigieg heartfelt reaction?
You're right. This is the Dem reaction here. This is how they want you to feel.
So many people around the country, I just saw something that made my stomach turn. Something I didn't think that I would see, even under this administration. A United States senator pushed to the ground and handcuffed after asking questions of a federal government official.
Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go and stand behind my back.
All right. Cool.
What are we supposed to do about that? Well, first of all, we name what just happened, which is that the Trump government has crossed one of the reddest of red lines that can exist in a free society. Any salute to the flag or talk of patriotism or American greatness is completely hollow if you do not respect the freedoms that that flag represents, the Constitution that directs the course of this country. And they've shown what they think of those freedoms and that Constitution. Now what? Well, much will depend on the courage of members of the Senate and the House, especially Republicans. This kind of thing is designed to make them more afraid. Our job as American citizens is to make sure that they realize they have more politically to lose by riding the tiger of this out-of-control administration, which will sooner or later eat them too, then going along with it. That's going to take all of us raising our voices like never before.
Todd, you would think they stormed into Alex Padilla's office, threw him to the ground, and handcuffed him. And Pete Buttigieg is such a good theater kid. Like, I'm convinced every Democrat politician is just a theater kid, only they were too ugly or bad to actually go to Hollywood. And and like you hear that, and this is getting shared all over social media. I found this video, a couple people I'm friends with on Facebook had shared it, and like, oh my God, we live in such troubling times. Like, Todd, don't you think something really bad happened to poor Alex Padilla?
Yeah, I almost would have thought that the deep state had geo-tracking information and knocked down raided homes of innocent Americans and arrested them at gunpoint in front of their family and made them sit in DC jail cells for a couple of years. I almost thought that happened. This sounds terrible. Did they go raid Padilla's home in the middle of the night and arrest him in front of his family and not really name any specific crime he committed? Because it almost seemed like that. Unfortunately, that's not exactly how this played out. I got to say, too, Jason, the beard, not buying it. Pete Buttigieg just trying to mature himself now, present a new look to the American people because he's going to run again because that's all he can do. He'll run for president in 28. Not buying the beard. I am not buying the sad puppy eyes here and the threat to democracy once again. We're over this because we've heard it before. It's been a threat to democracy for 10 years.
Yeah, and now, Todd, should we show the people what really happened? And we had to look for video for this. So to frame this up, Kristi Noem is at one of the buildings in DC hosting a press conference. So the people you see there are all reporters, and they're asking questions about what's going on. This was a press conference. In the middle of the press conference, Alex Padilla storms in, starts heading up to the podium, shouting questions. Her security detail, like, he isn't even wearing a suit. He's wearing like dressed like me. He's wearing like a polo. And the security detail grabs him, stops him, and he's dragging him out, he's like, I'm a senator. And now the left's saying he identified himself. Well, let's play the video, and we'll let the audience let us know what they think.
Senator Alex Padilla, I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
I'm going to back this up. We'll do another.
So I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this.
Hands up, hands up.
Also, I want to talk
Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to talk about specifically.
Ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go, I'd put behind my back.
All right. Cool. Hands with your hand. Lay flat. Lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
So let's back this up to the beginning. Kristi Noem standing there. You can see the room full of reporters as she's giving a speech addressing their questions. And Alex Padilla, unannounced, just comes in and think he can roll up, interfere with her press conference, which whatever. But then you can see the security detail hop in and be like, no. Who are you? Get out of here. And then instead of complying, Steve starts pushing back. Like, am I wrong, Todd? But if you or I did that, what would her security detail have done to us?
Probably far worse, and I would be in a jail cell right now.
Right. So I got to say, Democrats, when you see this and everybody says he's doing oversight, he identified himself as a senator. You heard the start of the clip. She's up there giving a speech. He walks in and starts yelling, and then security steps in as he's getting drug out. But when you listen to the Pete Buttigieg clip and you see what happens, I got to think if you're a Democrat, your brain's like, well, no, he kind of barged his way in and was an a-hole. So perhaps this was not a good thing. I don't know, Todd. Am I wrong?
This was a stunt. We've said that already. If he wanted to legitimately ask her questions, I don't know about you, Jason. We watch a lot of C-SPAN videos. We kind of know how this works. They give their little talk, and then they open it up to the floor. Now, he could have planned ahead of time and gotten a seat down there and said, listen, Noam, I have a question I'm going to ask you when you're done with your little thing. Let's have a little dialogue back and forth. He could have waited for her to finish if he was really interested in asking a question. He wasn't interested in a dialogue. He was interested in getting some face time, and you hit the nail on the head. It's not a coincidence, or it's not an accident, rather, that this stunt happened just days before the planned mass protests around the country, because this is one more thing that's going to agitate the base. And Pete Buttigieg said, we got to let our voices be heard. just in time for June 14th.
Yeah. And I gotta say, now every Democrat has come out making these videos like Pete Buttigieg. We could play like 20 of them and they're all the same. But an interesting thing is happening with this one, Todd, because not only like the media actually knows they probably can't get this lie past the goalie. Like if we didn't have the video, and shout out to platforms like Rumble and Twitter, because the real videos have been going viral about what really happened. And if not for them, Democrats would have tried it. But now, should we see what the media is saying about it now, Todd? It's kind of interesting.
We just received a statement from the office of Senator Padilla, and they say that he's currently in Los Angeles.
For the record, we're in America. I always hated this. It just rubs me the wrong way. Senator Padilla, they have to make sure they accentuate the Spanish last name there. I hate that every time I hear it.
Exercising his duty to perform congressional oversight of the federal government's operations in Los Angeles.
Now, wait a sec. This was not oversight. Oversight, having her at a hearing, inviting her to a meeting, asking to get on her calendar. This is not oversight.
Across California, it goes on to say that he tried to ask the secretary a question and was forcibly removed by federal agents, forced to the ground and handcuffed. He is not currently detained.
This is an interesting description because that's actually what happened. If you watch the video, he did try asking a question. He was forcefully removed, except it doesn't mean it in the way he thinks it means. It's like, yeah, you tried asking a question at the wrong time, in the wrong way, and of course you were removed here. So they tell the truth in a way that doesn't tell the truth. Very interesting choice of words there.
And we are working to get additional information. David, over and over, we've heard from voters in different parts of the country talking about how they want to see Democrats confront the administration on some of these issues like immigration. I mean, it gets handsy, but Padilla was trying to make a statement there.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, she was holding a press conference and doing a press statement. He's not a member of the press. It wasn't like a hearing where it was an open forum for senators to ask a question. He clearly showed up to a public event to create a moment and do what you're saying, sort of show his constituents, not just Democrats, but that he's fighting from his perspective. Again, I think the question is, was this the appropriate response of how it got dealt with in that moment and how that plays to your point?
Now let's break this down for just a sec. They're talking about confronting the administration, and it might get handsy. Notice when Democrats push against security detail, it's not they're assaulting Kristi Noem's security. They're getting a little handsy. And this clown even has to concede, like, yeah, he showed up at a press conference to make a scene and get his video clip. They're admitting the truth. And somewhere there's a CNN viewer, both of them, hopefully one has a brain cell, and they're like, yeah, so this was a political stunt? Really?
So, I mean, what we're seeing politically is a very divided country over the support and opposition. It's almost evenly divided in a Washington Post poll today over the president's actions and policies here, both over the president putting in the Guard and the Marines there, right? But also we see an evenly divided country over support and opposition to the protests to ICE's action.
You might also, in a situation like this, say, what kind of moment was the senator looking for? But I also would note, and I'm curious just if you can speak to kind of the norms of things. Normally, you have a situation where there's more interaction, even between members of Congress who maybe don't see eye to eye with the White House. They are a little able, at least, to have some kind of interactions. There really are no avenues, I think, for members of Congress to get the ear of someone at the White House.
That's an interesting interpretation of how these things work, Jason. They don't have an opportunity. They can't have a meeting. So, folks, the other side of this is that after this happened, Kristi Noem sat down with Senator Padilla and they talked for like 15 minutes. I'm left wondering, like, if he really had concerns, could he have set up a meeting for 15 minutes with Noem before all this happened? Or instead of doing it this way? Seems like he still got time with Kristi Noem after all, and we didn't need this entire political charade here. And Jason, I just want to pop up one comment because this is perfect. Nita's over on the Facebook saying, Justin L. Green copycat. Yes, this is all this is. This is what they do. They make up some fake story. They think they're taking a stand, and it's the blue-haired base that eats this up. Like, look at them standing up for the Trump administration. That's all this is. Just another political stunt that didn't need to happen.
And I gotta say too, I wish I would have been in the planning meeting, because the Democrats did. They're looking around like, okay, who's the Hispanic that wants to go create a scene? Because we can't use Al Green this time, and we can't use Spartacus, Cory Booker. They're black. We need a Hispanic guy or gal. AOC, well, you might be pregnant. We don't want you getting wrestled. Padilla, nobody knows who you are. We'll send you in as the Spanish guy to go pick a fight. Because right now we're trying to frame this to the low IQ folks that Donald Trump hates the Hispanic people. So we got to have the Hispanic senator go in there. Let's go.
Yeah, and Kev's back. Good morning, Kev. The poor man's Al Green. There it is. Yeah, and this is a great comment too. This is again perfect fake news. No way the country is evenly divided. Get real. Amen, Joanne.
And I gotta say, Patricia belongs with us on Rumble. He lunged towards Christie. No, I'm lucky he wasn't. Word I can't say on Facebook. But yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I thought her security detail was pretty. I wanted him to react more aggressively. Like, with where the country's at right now with these riots and the violence, man, if you got somebody coming up screaming at one of Trump or his cabinet members, I would like them tased minimum. Like, just let them flop on the ground a little bit. You know what I mean?
And they're insincere if you just do some thought experiments. Let's imagine for a second that it is Alejandro Mayorkas giving a press conference, and pick a name from some MAGA senator, barges in, starts shouting, and gets hauled away. Would CNN and would the mainstream media, would Pete Buttigieg be like, this was a dark day in our history. MAGA senator gets handcuffed in the hallway. Biden overstepped his reach there. Or would they have said, there is no place for these kinds of shenanigans? Mayorkas was just trying to give a talk to a room full of reporters. That MAGA senator could have gone through a different way to make sure his question was heard. Do you think they would have covered it the same way? Do you think they would have had the same outrage as it is right now?
Yeah. Well, and I find it funny too, because on the CNN coverage, notice how they don't like show the clip of what happened. And, I've been reliably heard from them that, like, pushing police, like, you wanted to lock up January 6 people for assaulting police officers, but what Padilla does to the security detail, that's totally cool, bro. And then you wonder why people on the left that follow this ideology, you wonder why it gets violent with them, because when law enforcement comes up to you, I got to say, I've been to concerts, sporting events, I've been to different political things. If I go up and the security guy says back up, I back up, or I'm getting my A kicked. You know what I mean? And I don't know. And when Padilla's like, oh, I'm Senator Padilla, it strikes me as this lefty, don't you know who I am move. And like, anybody that does that is a complete tool, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm not going to read Kev's comment here, but Kev, stay tuned, because the Rumble only today will start talking about this very issue.
Yeah. Oh, we got Mickey on. Mickey brought me bread a couple weeks ago after the podcast. And Todd, she has confirmed she's going to get you a sourdough starter kit. So
I was talking about that, Mickey. I am looking forward to starting some sourdough. Appreciate it.
Right. Getting up. Just not today. Jen's getting her wisdom teeth out, so she'll be sleeping.
Yeah, and Kev, I think you made this point right before you joined us here. But yeah, I set this up saying like, oh no, look at what they did to Padilla. I can't imagine we crossed that line. Yeah, it's almost like they knocked down the doors in the middle of the night and arrested the dad in front of his entire family. Weird.
Right. And now, was it CNN that had the other good response to that?
I think we have CBS now.
Or CBS, yeah. Let's see what CBS
Bring in
had
CBS
to say.
News correspondent Carter Evans, who was in the press conference when Padilla was escorted out. Carter, you took some video as it was unfolding. Let's talk about how this all played out.
You know, I would say it was a big surprise for everyone. I was actually shooting some video of the DHS secretary while she was speaking. I was going to post it on social media when I heard someone approaching from the right side of the room, and that's when I panned the camera over there. Now, I did not recognize the senator immediately either. This all happened.
Oh, hold on a second. The senator was unrecognizable. Could it have been anybody that just barged into the room? Legitimate security risk?
And this is a Washington reporter whose job it is to know everybody. Like Kristi Noem, I don't think it's her job to know every senator, or know who all the political players are. And you see this clip he's showing of Padilla, like back that up just a little bit. Like watch the beginning of this clip this guy took, I think from his phone. So she's up there speaking. Let's let her go.
The camera over there. Now, I did not recognize the senator immediately.
All right, so security says, we got a guy over here.
Either.
Here he is. Here is this man shouting right now. Look how close he has gotten. He had to walk into the room. He had to walk to the front of the presentation there. How much farther is he going to go? What is he going to do? We don't know.
Right. And you see security like putting his hand on his chest, like they're doing nothing inappropriate at this point. And he is not stopping. And she's in the middle of giving her speech to the press, like inappropriate, unannounced. And you tell me, like, could you tell that dude was a senator?
I see a rather large man. And Jason, you touched on this. Security's initial response is the hand right here, indicating you're not going any farther. I imagine he was saying that as well. You need to stop, sir. At that point, if Padilla were genuinely concerned about getting heard rather than make a scene, which is what he wanted to do, he could have paused. He could have sat down and waited. Noem, I don't think Noem spoke for very long anyways. He would have had a chance. And he could have pulled like, I'm a senator card. Let me cut to the front of the line and ahead of all these reporters here. But watch what he does instead.
This all happened very, very quickly. The DHS secretary.
And he is resisting. You can see his body. He is resisting officers' movements to get him out of the way. He has no intention of complying, playing by the rules, doing this the right way. Again, all a scene.
Did not skip a beat. She just kept looking straight ahead, kept delivering her message as he was dragged out of the room trying to ask his questions.
Just trying to ask questions, Jason.
That's all he's doing.
Yeah, I like this comment. Where is he here? Looks AI. AI is nowadays. He could be an AI reporter. Like,
right.
Do we have any confirmation Carter Evans exists?
Oh. All right, should we watch the rest of CBS?
Yeah, we're up here.
He decided to come down and listen in to see what was going on. He also mentioned that he'd been trying to ask.
Hold on a second. We got to hear that whole thing. He decided to listen in.
His position and what he wanted to actually ask Noem at the time.
Well, it's unclear exactly what he wanted to ask her. He did say that he was here at the federal building in Westwood for a different reason, for a different meeting, and that he heard that this press conference was going on, so that he decided to come down and listen in to see what was going on. He also mentioned that he...
I have to laugh. None of that looked like listening in. I guess the thing that I'm not clear on, Jason, is how long he was there before that happened. Like, was he standing in the back of the room listening in? Either way, this is stupid. Yeah, I just wanted to hear what she had to say. And by the way, I'm going to try to interrupt the entire thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've attended different speeches and events, and, I just want to listen and hear what they're talking about. Never once did I just think I could walk in and just barge in and say, hey, let me head to the stage and start asking questions,
Been trying to ask the administration and the Department of Homeland Security questions for some time, but had not been receiving a response. So he said that this, he thought, would be a good time to go and ask those questions.
Does anyone believe this? I'm going to ask this to our Democrat audience, because I know our audience is liking and sharing this content with the people that disagree with us. Do you honestly believe that Senator Padilla was there to listen and ask questions when his behavior suggests otherwise? I would posit if he wanted to ask questions and listen, he could have stood there respectfully like everybody else. He could have waited his turn, raised his hand, get called on, and asked a question. Now, I also know as a U.S. Senator, you have special access to people in the Trump administration. You could have set up a meeting privately, but he's not interested in a private meeting, because then this doesn't get accomplished. He met with her afterwards, so I know that those channels of communication are open. Seems to me like there would have been any other way to do this if you were genuinely interested in asking questions.
Right. And don't they have email accounts and staffers? Like, hey, I had a couple of questions. You got 10 minutes for a phone call? No, it is all, Jeff nails it. It is all a publicity stunt.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see how CNN finishes the coverage.
Now, the other condition of him speaking out here is that he wouldn't take any questions from the media. And there were a lot of questions about why he chose that particular time to ask his questions. She was in the middle of her opening remarks. They hadn't opened up the news conference to questions, and he took several steps toward the podium. And, not knowing or recognizing who he is immediately, it's not surprising that authorities took the action they did.
Hold on a second. CBS said it was not surprising that they reacted the way that they did. That's not what Pete Buttigieg told me. He said I can't, stand attention in front of the flag or say I'm a patriot because if I support what happened here, I am supporting tyranny. But now Carter is telling me it's okay to be like, maybe this wasn't the right time or place, and they acted appropriately.
And notice, a minute ago he said he wanted to listen in, and now they'd be like, yeah, she hadn't even got through her introduction yet.
So he couldn't have been listening for very long before he decided to do this.
Oh, this is delicious.
To stop someone who was approaching the DHS secretary at the podium while she's speaking during a news conference, saying, security was extremely tight here. So I think in the room, we were all surprised to see that anyone would be.
These dudes are like, Padilla's not a small man either. Yeah, and Kev, you mentioned this earlier, Jason. They picked a guy no one knows because if Spartacus or Pocahontas walk in, it's them. 100%. And they picked the large Hispanic male because, then again, we're talking about DHS and immigration and what's going on there. And very physically imposing man. Yeah, this security detail, though, is awesome. Look at them just manhandle him.
Should have
Be coming forward and trying to interrupt this news conference. Initially, I think some people presumed that it was a member of the news media. Turns out it was a U.S.
So nobody in the room knew who this guy was. Weird.
I love this so much because the eagle on Padilla, and he's waking up today and he's listening to this. They're like, nobody knows who I am.
Right. Yeah, they pick him because he's a DEI hire. He's Hispanic, and then they also are like, well, and nobody knows who you are, so like we can go ahead and send you in.
Remember how you thought you were a big deal because you're a U.S. senator? Turns out nobody cares. They don't know who you are.
Yeah, they're making the list. Who's the Hispanic dudes that nobody knows? We probably can't send in like one of the Castros. Somebody might know him. I love this.
Senator.
Yeah, and for background, Carter, you've been covering these protests day in and day out. And Padilla is representing constituents there in that area who are emotional about what's happening. So I assume he was there to represent their thoughts and opinions. Is that the sense that you got? Maybe talk about why he was there and why he made that uninvited visit.
Yeah, he sounded very passionate. And as you saw, he got a little emotional outside here when he was talking about how if a U.S. senator is treated this way, imagine how the farm workers are being treated.
I want everyone to be treated that way. Honestly, this just in, folks. I don't care if you're a Democrat senator or an illegal slave hand that Democrats invited into this country to perform cheap labor for everybody. If you get out of line, whatever your station in life, I want you treated this way.
I got to say, I grew up in a small town, Todd. And when I was a young lad, a teenager, I remember I thought I had a good idea to go skip school and go drinking with my buddies. And at about 3 p.m, we got busted for playing way too loud heavy metal, drinking liquor and being all liquored up. And when the cop came and he removed me from the house I was in, by grabbing my shirt and pulling me out, and he put me, took me to the hood of his car. He played basketball with my head off the hood of his car because I, of course, was not cooperating. And it was funny as everything gets resolved and my dad's got to come get me. And I'm like, eh. And Dad's like, well, hopefully you learn not to resist security or the police. Like, fighting back against them is bad. I don't know how you can be a senator that old and think it's a good idea to pick a fight with security. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and Jason, I always walk this line. Like, we need police in this country. We need law and order for stability for a functioning society. Doesn't mean I always support what police do or like the idea of a state police. So it's an interesting place to be as a America First patriot. That being said, if I were ever encountering police, the very first thing I do, and this is not a hard concept, is you comply. Do you value your life? Do you value your safety? That is not the moment to pick a fight. You never win in that situation. I don't know what is so hard about this. I am very anti-authoritarian by nature, but when it comes to an interaction with police, the first thing you do is say, yes, sir. Now, I know this is interesting for a Democrat to hear because they think only black people ever have the talk. When I learned to drive, though, Jason, hands on the wheel, yes, sir, window down, here's my ID. If I'm never going to be in a situation like this because I'm not an idiot. But yeah, okay, you're telling me I can't go any closer. You got it, guys. I'll just walk away. We're good here. But no, they can't do it.
Yeah, I remember like wife and I were taking a road trip like a year ago, going to the casino, driving home, got pulled over for speeding. Cop walks up, 10 and 2, you know, like, hey, license registration. Okay, gonna grab my license. You know, I am not going to have my hands where they can't see them or anything because, and I got to say, with the rhetoric the left is doing, all the violence, like every member of any of Trump or his cabinet security detail should be aggressively ensuring their safety as far as I'm concerned. And like I say, this conduct, like Pete Buttigieg would have made it sound like I say, like they busted into his office and drug him out. How dare you ask questions? This guy behaved like an a-hole. And I want to say what's important. This went out on CBS. And so there's normie Democrats that are hearing all this stuff about Trump's Gestapo and they handcuffed Senator, and then they see the video. And I mean, I think at a base level, you're like, why didn't he get tased and why weren't they rougher with him? You know.
Also, is that Trump's Gestapo or is that Kristi Noem's private security detail? It seems like
right
detail.
Oh, hey, before we go too far, too, we got Paul Reese. He's taking care of his dad today and just listening. Paul's not much in the chat. Todd, what do you think about Split Rock Coffee?
I had to be really careful, folks. I set my coffee as far away as possible because we had a mishap, and the repair shop just told me that the entire motherboard is dead and it would cost just as much to replace that as buy a new one. So coffee is far away. Coffee you can spill all day, though. Coffee you can drink all day. SplitRockCoffee.com. SplitRockCoffee.com. Use promo code Todd10. And Jason, I always forget the one that has more caffeine now, but I'm on the breakfast blend, and Paul every week has to remind us in the chat, no, you got to get this one. But SplitRockCoffee.com, they got a whole host of options for you. Subscribe and save. You can get it delivered to your doorstep whenever you want it, so you never have to deal with the grocery store again. SplitRockCoffee.com, promo code Todd10.
Ah, spectacular. So this Padilla thing, hopefully we framed up the left narrative, what they're seeing. You're getting chinks in the armor because CNN and CBS are kind of having to tell the truth. Once again, God bless X and Rumble, shows like this that actually show you what happened. And, you know, we say like share this with, you know, especially friends you might not agree with. You're going to have some friend or family member who's like, I can't believe they're arresting senators. And you can go, hey, you know what? Todd and Jason just talked about that. Have you seen the full video? Like, give these, you know, watch these two guys. Like, they do a great breakdown. You know, they unedited, like, here's the clips. And that's our chance to help save America, is getting people to understand there are the crazy blue-haired cat ladies, you are not going to get through to them. They're normal Democrats that see Padilla's behavior and they're like, oh my God, he should have got his butt kicked more. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not setting out trying to get 100% of Americans to be America first. I will always wonder, how are you not America first? We only need to get like 55, 60%. Like every time you share this video, that's one more person. They could share the content here. We just need enough. You just need enough to combat the woke communist left. And Jason, I do wonder, like when we had the fine people, they had to actually edit the video. These news broadcasts aren't even editing the clip. They're just like, here he is, and this is what happened. And you'll still have people that will never have seen this, and they're just going to be like, well, I saw Pete respond to it, so I know it's bad. And then you just ask them, did you see the videotape? Did you see what Padilla did? And like, no. Like, it's fine people all over again, but there's not even edits this time.
Well, and it's funny, too, because there will actually be people that defend what this clown did.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, well, he was doing oversight. This is not government oversight. Bursting into a press conference, charging to the stage, screaming, and then fighting back against police, not oversight. Just so we're clear. And if it is oversight, I want to be part of this oversight. Like, let's bring back the duels. Like, didn't politicians used to do duels?
Alexander Hamilton.
You're right. Now what other story do we hit here in the last 10 minutes before we go Rumble only? Because I'm looking at the videos we got queued up. I'm like, those are going to be Rumble only.
I think we have one more commentary from CNN.
Okay.
In there necessarily. What reporting do you have, and how should we, in your view, be analyzing how we're seeing these agents respond?
Well, it's easy to think about this as one incident, but actually from a law enforcement perspective, we're really looking at three separate incidents that happened within a short period of time. First, you have the DHS secretary who is addressing the press. This was not a Q&A period, and she's interrupted. She's interrupted by someone who is speaking very loudly.
Okay, pause right there. That's number one. She is giving a press conference, and she gets interrupted by a man who he doesn't even identify yet. Just a man speaking loudly. And again, that was the feeling in the room. Who is this guy?
And so her security detail confronts what we obviously now know to be the senator.
Jason, I feel like I am interrupting too much, but we have to stress this. They didn't know who that was. By this reporter's own admission, he says, by who we now identify as Senator Padilla, nobody knew at the time, which is just also laughable because this guy's ego is getting crushed today. Nobody knew.
And at that point, he is now going to be escorted out. You can't interrupt something like that that's already in progress without having those consequences. But
I'm letting all this sink in. This is CNN, folks. CNN.
The second incident, in my view, happens the moment as officers are trying to lead him out. He then turns and walks back towards kind of into those agents. At that point, from a security detail perspective, we're taking this person out against their will.
Okay. Again, pausing to let that sink in. He did not leave when asked. He tried to come back and force his way back against the security detail. And I don't think we knew who it was yet still.
We've asked the person, and again, this is all happening very quickly, but the moment he then turns into them, they realize this is not someone who is going to comply.
This is a federal bill.
So it sounds like they handled it appropriately. I wonder if Pete Buttigieg watched this.
Yeah, clearly Pete did. You know, he gave that heartfelt speech, and oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe they did this. And I got to say, when you're a brain dead person just sitting there on CNN and you just saw like 3 clips of politicians saying like, oh, this is bad, then this guy's on there and it's like, wait, Padilla's an a-hole. This is crazy.
You know what, folks? Instead of sharing the podcast, share CNN, their messiah figure, the arbiter of truth in the world. They could just simply watch the CNN clip, take Todd and Jason out of it, and let them try to figure out, like, well, wait a second. Pete said this, and then CNN said this, and CNN never lies to me. They never lied about fine people or collusion or bloodbath or Cheney or elections. No, they always tell the truth.
Building, you can't just, wander in there necessarily. What reporting do you have, and how should we, in your view, be analyzing how we're seeing these agents respond?
Well, it's easy to think about this as one incident, but actually from a law enforcement perspective, we're really looking at three separate. Senator happens the moment as officers are trying to lead him out, he then turns and walks back.
All right, so I think we listened to all of them there. Fascinating from CNN. It almost, gosh, Jason, when you and I agree with CNN, something is freezing over right now.
Oh my God, isn't it crazy? And for those who haven't, oh wait, I gotta find the map here. For those who haven't figured out what this is all about, let me pull this up. I think I have this. This is what this is about, folks. This Saturday, they have the No King's Day protest planned. It's going on. All these dots you see are the No King's Day protest. Trump can't be a king. They need to get all the brain deads fired up. Trump's arresting senators. Oh my God, he's Hispanic. Oh, this is so bad. This is what this is about. And if you Google No King's Day, you can find some maps and stuff online. Like, we can't share too much on the old Facebook and YouTube. Rumble only will talk a little bit more about it, but they are waiting for an incident because right now they're looking for George Floyd 2.0. They want the Hispanic version. Hector Rodriguez, like, he's going to stand up and get hit by an ICE agent or something, or get shot. and then they're looking to set off Summer Love 2.0, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is fully what they're trying to do here. And again, gin up as much excitement between the LA riots, Padilla's stunt here. I'm sure we'll see something else pop off today. They want the Trump administration to respond. They want something to happen. And then they will have even further excuse in their deluded world over there to say, see, this is what we're trying to tell you about.
Yeah. And I got to say, so we broke down at the start the why we want all illegals gone. They don't want to be part of America. We've gone into the Padilla thing probably too long, but I think it was an important conversation. Should we end with the soy boy, the Facebook YouTube section with the soy boy clip, Todd?
I was saving that. That'll be a perfect transition to Rumble here. Kev says the No Kings people who make us hear about Harry and Meghan nonstop. And for the record, Jason, I say this often as well. I'm over democracy with universal voting rights. I'm not saying I'm ready for a king, but I am ready for a benevolent dictator. And if you want to use a different label for that, I'm fine with that. Voting is too easy, and the voting that is too easy has led to all of this chaos in America right now. So I'm kind of on board. Like, we're picking a lane, king or no king, and I'm on the king side 100%. I don't want all these clowns. If you are protesting on Saturday, you should be abdicating your responsibility, your right to vote, your privilege to vote.
Yeah, I got to say, the wife and I were having that conversation, and I'm like, yeah, this whole voting thing. And it's funny. One of the big sticking things for me is the fact that people can vote to take money from other people. And then they make it sound like a moral good that I took money from the other people. And it's just wrong. Like, you shouldn't take it. But let's listen to the soy boys.
But I have a kid. If I don't pay these people are having their children taken and their parents. What about my kids? If I lose my job today, then what happens to my kids? I can't help you. But you can if you could just move off the way. You're not going to. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing peaceful? No, it's not.
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problems. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to.
Man, the left always eats its own. Like, this is what the revolution is here. There are so many intersectional crossroads in this one short clip. I love everything about this, not for the right reasons, but this is fantastic.
I gotta say, I gotta find the spot in the video. I screenshotted. It's harder to do in the studio thing, but like, it is the like, this woman. How many cats does she own, Todd?
Over under 7.5.
Right, yeah. And then the soy boy. Watch his face when she says, "I gotta get to work."
Then what happens to my kids? I can't help you. But you can if you could just move off the way.
Look at that guy. Is that not every soy boy you've ever seen in your life? Man bun, got his coffee, and
I just love the white supremacy here. Yeah, Kev's just being black makes it just chef's kiss here, like preventing a black woman from going to work and getting her kids. And his response is, he freezes because he's like, I think this is wrong somewhere, but he's like, work? You're gonna go to work?
Oh my God! Yeah, I love
How
his
is this a peaceful
response.
protest if there's nothing peaceful? No, it's not.
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
Oh no, not work. Like, this is the Democrat Party. This is what they stand for. This is why people are sick of them. And I think it's probably a good time before we get in trouble on some of these platforms, Todd. Should we wrap up the first hour? You can tell people where to find us on Rumble. And then I just dropped in the Discord chat that Steve, I'm in video, or however you say his name. Like, I think we got to start the Rumble one with that. I saw that one, and it is spectacular. And his commentary is just nuts.
So we had Joe, Greg, Wendy, Byron, Randy, Wendy Paulette. Fally was over on the Facebook today. Fally, let's get that audio figured out. Artie, Nita. There are so many of you over on Facebook. Appreciate you watching the program. Appreciate you taking the time to comment, share your thoughts. No trolls today. I'm always disappointed when we don't get a Facebook troll. But folks, the show is continuing, but we just got to cut the feed on Facebook because I'm really excited. We are going to talk about the appropriate response to either the No Kings protest or the immigration protests in general. This is a beautiful moment here, but we can't talk about it on Facebook. So we're going to say goodbye to our Facebook audience. Don't have to say goodbye to you, though. You can go to rumble.com, search out the American Tribune over at rumble.com. And we got another half hour, 45 minutes planned.
Our favorite half hour of the week is when we get to hang out with our Rumble peeps. So let's close this up. We'll see you guys on the flip side. Thanks for tuning in, though. Next Friday, we'll be back. Oh, wait. Oh, you're getting them shut down. All right. Rumble peeps, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to request